Today I'm gonna break down exactly how I made this disco pop track, and it's gonna sound like this. Hey, I'm Alex. I'm a music producer and I've worked with some of the biggest brands. And in this video, I'm gonna break down exactly how I made this track. So by the end of this video, you can make your own disco pop track. Let's get started. All right, so let's start with the intro. So the intro, there's not much to it. There's basically all these synths playing together. The main thing to notice is all the automation I did. This is what's gonna create that sense of everything's kind of opening and building and create this kind of tension. And here I automated some panning to get this kind of like, it feels like it slows down. So the keys together. So you really get that effect using automation really. And here on that synth, which is the main one, there's like mud wheel automation, which like makes it glide and vibrate. This type of stuff is super important to make the sounds more interesting, you know? And then apart from that, we have a kick playing and there's some automation on the kick too, filter automation and reverb. There is less and less reverb, so it's gonna feel like the kick is getting closer to us. And then I get a bunch of risers. So all of it together, kick and the risers together, check it out. I have a downer on the downbeat of the chorus. That's a little sidechain, kind of cool, creates a little more motion. So then I drop directly on the chorus. Sometimes I like starting with the strongest part. So let's take a look at the keys. So that's the main keys. So the first chord is gonna be a B minor 7, then we get a E9, then we get a G over A, and then a D major 7. So as you can notice, we're using 7th chord or even more. If you're doing like disco music, you usually want to use at least 7th chord, sometime even 9th, 11, 13, but you want to use this richer harmonics. So let's see how that one sounds. All right, so that's the main one, and then I'm layering it with this one, which is doing the exact same thing, but it's just a little brighter and it's panned on the left. And then we have that one, a Wurlitzer, which is panned on the right. And so they're all doing the exact same thing. I'm just like making the sound feel a little fuller. Check it out. So you see, it just makes the sound fuller because they're not competing for attention, because they're doing the exact same thing and they're sitting in different part of the frequency spectrum and also in different part of the three-dimensional, different part of the width, I guess. Like one's on the left, one's on the right, one's on the center. And so they work really well together. Then I'm adding that organ. So you see I'm kind of gliding into it. That creates a good amount of motion. And the organ is very much on the right and in the pretty high register. So again, it's not fighting with that one that's also on the right because this one's much lower. So that's about it for the keys. Yeah. Then we have some string hits that layered with this JV 1080 hit, which is a classic sound. You probably recognize it. And I layered it with that guitar one shot that's delayed, just to create a little bit of motion. And so all together. I also pitched down that string line to create that little line in the chorus, which is kind of iconic of that instrumental, I guess. So let's take a look at the drums now. So the drums, we have the kick, the main kick. So if you notice, I layered a stomp on the downbeat just to create a little more impact. And I also layered a stereo hi-hat. So it's just gonna bring a little bit of width and transient to the kick. It's very subtle, but this type of details makes a lot of difference. Now let's check out the snare. So the snare, there's a lot happening. It's a big sounding snare, so I just layered a bunch of them, which is how you get that thick, full sound. When you do it, you want to make sure the sounds don't clash and they actually add to each other. Like, check, this is my main one. So pretty normal snare sound. Then I have this one, which is like super bright and wide. And then we have that one, which is like a little like thumpier. So they kind of all work well together. If you notice, I didn't align them exactly on the grid. The goal of doing that is so it feels a little more human, you know, and they don't fall at the same time. There's a little bit of friction, which makes it feel like a bunch of people were clapping at the same time. And also on the beat 4 of each bar, I add 2 other claps. This one, like super reverby tucked in the back, and this one with a reverse into it. And the goal is just to accentuate the beat 4. Check it out with the drums. So it's kind of subtle, but between that stomp here and the little accent there, it creates more motion and movement. It's not like as flat all the time. And then the main thing is I added these percussion loops. So that's super important. Top drums are what really creates a groove. That's what like brings motion and dimension to your drums. So check it out. I have that conga groove. So I chopped it on the snare just to allow the snare to breathe better. And then I added that little percussion loop here, just some cowbell, just to add on top of the congas. They kind of work really well together. I call this method the Frankenstein method. Anyway, so if you play everything together, so yeah, grooves super well together. And also here I have some fills. Every like 4 bars or something I have fills happening. And I did the same as I did with the percussion. I took a bunch and chopped them together. So that's the first fill, check it out. So super cool, right? It's like a mix of electronic and acoustic. Here's fill number 2. So same, I use the Frankenstein method on both. Check it out with the rest of the drums. This kind of stuff brings the listener back in. You want to have a bunch of them like all throughout your song. So that's most of it for the drums. Then we get the bass. The bass, if you're doing disco or funk music, the bass is the most important element. So you want to make sure that bass groove really hard. So let's listen to the bass and drums together. So this is a MIDI bass. I'm using Trillion. If I was actually going to release that song or something, I would get a real bass player on it, because I mean Trillion's really good, but it doesn't beat a real bass player, in my opinion. But here's a few things to notice about that bass. First, not everything's on the grid. I'm trying to make it feel like a human played it. Then I use some swing. So this is not on the grid because it's swinging right here. Then we have a bunch of octave jumps, like these 2 notes, which is a classic disco move and funk move. And you want to make sure they're really tight, really short. Check. They kind of give that bang. That's what a slap bass player would do. And also I'm playing with the velocity. Check. That little walk up right here is going from very low velocity to way higher. And this is just all that just to replicate a human feel, basically. So that's about it for the bass line. Drop a comment if you want me to break down more of like how I write bass lines like that, and let me know. I can make a video specifically about bass lines. And then I have some guitars. So it's like classic funky guitar. I put a phaser on it and a bunch of other stuff. But what I did here, you must be wondering why it's so chopped up. Usually I don't do that, but I wanted to try it with that song. To basically chop up each note to make it as tight as possible, like if it was Neil Rogers playing it, you know? And it came out pretty good. I might use that technique more actually. Check it out with the bass and drums. So that's about all we have for the chorus. So as you can see, there's not much happening. There's bass, drums, guitar, keys, and a few string hits. Listen to everything together. All right, then we drop into the verse. Check it out. So I don't know if you noticed, but I'm using the same chord, I'm using most of the same ingredients. What I'm doing to make it feel like a verse is that I'm just like deconstructing the track and rebuilding it basically. And I bring in and out some new elements, some of the old ones. So check, when we get in the verse. So I kind of break it down with this, like those hits, which kind of like resets us a little bit almost. And then I bring back everything in, but not exactly everything, just the keys, the drums, and the bass. And I change the drums a little bit. I start with that soft hi-hat. And when it speeds up, I have this one to create a little bit more motion. And I kind of simplify the snare so it's not as big. And it gives us room to grow in the chorus. And so at first I only have these keys, then the organ comes in and leaves. Then it leaves. Then we get a new guitar coming in, single note one. And then we get that other guitar coming back a little later. We get some string hit that come back. So it's really playing with like what's in and what's out, you know? You really like bring some stuff in, take some stuff out. And you kind of keep doing that to like make sure the listener don't get bored and make it feel fresh, you know, and not too repetitive, even if it's the same chord, the same bass line and everything. So that's about it for the verse really. And then we drop in the pre-chorus, and the pre-chorus is basically the same thing as the intro. There's just a bass line on top. There's a little bit of guitar single note picking, and I have this little hi-hat loop. So it's a slightly extended version of the pre-chorus. Then there's that little snare build up. Check. So I hope you enjoyed the video and you learned some cool stuff. You should click on this video next because I break down exactly what makes a track sounds cheap, but even better, how you can avoid it.